Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to MediaScope's live Friday chat. Today I'm really pleased to be joined by Alice Almeida from Hitwise, and we're going to be talking about audience data. We're also trying to have Trent from IOTA join us. We're just having a couple of technical issues with him, which seems to be our daily menu at the moment, or our weekly menu with these live chats, but I will keep persisting because I think they're a really good way for us to get something in. Oh, here comes Trent again. We'll just let him in and then we'll continue the chat. Fingers crossed that he makes it. Thank you, Axel, for giving him a thumbs up. Alice, we might get started with you. Trent's just having some problems getting in there. Alice, we might just get started with you. We're going to be talking about data, audience data today. And one of the things that I know with you, Alice, and I saw you speaking at an event, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and what you really said there really kind of struck me. You said when you first started in data, you were pretty well sitting in the cupboard in the back of the office. And now it really seems like you're front and centre. In fact, you probably own the office. So I suppose, you might have some doubts there from the look on your face.
My team might have doubts.
Your teammates might not agree.
Yeah.
I suppose, wanted to, first of all, because you've been involved in this sector for so long, I really wanted to get a sense from you of the journey that data has taken in this market. So from you sitting in the cupboard to now very much being front of office, how have you seen it progress and how have you seen it evolve and become such a mainstay in our market over that time?
Yeah, so for those that don't know, I started in Channel 9 in advertising sales and was soon managed out of that.
In what year was
2003? Yep. Early 2003. And that's back when being insights and research, actually I don't think insights was even a word that we used back then, but being in data and research wasn't perceived as very cool. You were kind of the nerds of the office, but not the trendy hipster kind of nerds, like the number crunching nerds. So you were kind of, at one point I did have an office full of VHS tapes, floor to ceiling, was kind of hidden away from the funky, trendy, hip sales team. And that's kind of where it really started. I kind of moved into this line of area because I was incredibly curious and I asked too many questions and I didn't just take the money. And since then, I kind of, back then you had a couple of core research platforms where you could get audience data from. And by audience data, back then it wasn't really online audience data. It was more so I was working in TV. So we were working with the likes of Roy Morgan and Nielsen. However, flash forward to these days, and there are... Hi, Trent.
Hi, guys.
Good to see you.
Hi.
Well,
Definitely having some sound issues there, Trent. We'll keep going with Alice for a moment. Oh,
yes.
Keep going, Alice.
Yeah. So, so I kind of... if you have a look at what's available these days in regards to audience data, you have a look at the company map that you put out and how many companies are listed within the media playing field. And predominantly a lot of those are digital data tech companies. There's so much competition in the market. And I think this is because clients have clued on in the last 5-6 years, maybe even a little bit longer, that they can find out so much about their consumers. So I've been to a couple of conferences recently, and a lot of clients all have the same kind of concern. They have all of this data, but they don't know what to do with it. Or they have the opportunity to get all this data, but they're not quite sure how to action it from there. So there's a lot of demand in the market for people that can interpret data and that can build it into relevant consumer insights or, even just industry insights. So I see that, you can pretty much answer anything with digital behaviour data at the moment.
Exactly. Trent, you just come back in. I feel like, Trent, we've had a tour of your house.
Would you like me to go into a couple other rooms? Are you around?
Well, we'd like to see the kitchen next, I think.
It's actually not that interesting.
Oh, we've lost vision, but we
That's
can...
all right.
And I'm okay with that if you want.
Well, I'm sure everybody is.
No. As I said, we wanted to see your kitchen next. Trent, if I can come to you. Thank you, Alice. Thank you. That's a really interesting story. And, as I said, you've really seen data as a tool that marketers and publishers and advertisers are using. You've really seen such an interesting progression. Trent, if I can come to you now, you and I first met when I was at Essential Baby during the Fairfax earn-out year. You were heading up Fairfax Digital at the time, just took over from Liam Walsh. So I suppose the thing that I really wanted to first ask you was how does, like me, how do you go from, selling banners on websites for Fairfax to now being a co-founder of quite a large international audience data business?
I think a lot of it's got to do with positioning yourself with people that are far smarter than you, so that you can partner together and do. I mean, I always had a bit of an itch to do my own thing. When I left Fairfax, I had the opportunity to meet Kevin Tan, who's one of my co-founders. Kevin was heading up international for a tech called Adaf. A member of the international management team was Christina Prop, who is the other co-founder. About 18 months after joining Adaf as head of ANZ, it was acquired off the back of that. Christina and Kevin and I, we'd been talking for a while, throwing various ideas around to do our own thing. Kevin had his own audience measurement business about 10 years previously up in Southeast Asia. So that's how we got underway. We essentially just rolled the dice and thought that we would roll our sleeves up. It was an opportunity, particularly around audience data. We was less cluttered landscape and important going forward.
Just having some problems hearing you properly there, Trent. I do apologise that we're having some issues both seeing and hearing you. Alice, if I can perhaps come back to you now, and hopefully we'll be able to speak to Trent again. First of all, really just wanted to get your big picture overview of what you see going on in the market at the moment. Any issues, anything that's particularly catching your eye? Just that general overview before we actually start to get into the core of data.
Yeah, so obviously you covered a very hot topic last Friday, and that's probably one thing that's holding the whole industry back, and this is a prime example. And also I was at the Hunter Valley this week at a conference, and I had next to no mobile phone reception, internet connection was poor. And you think back in the even 2010, when it was bad, you thought by 2016 you'd have it sorted and you'd have fast internet, or you'd at least be able to access the internet in not even far regional areas of New South Wales. Like, this is Hunter Valley. So obviously that's something that's really holding the industry back. On the positive side of things, I think the buzzword for this year is all going to be about personalization. It's a word that I'm hearing at every conference. Hi, Trent. Back again.
Hi, Trent.
I feel like I'm stealing your show.
Oh, keep going, Alice.
Yeah, so personalization is this buzzword that's being thrown around, and luckily for me and for the company that I work in, we can kind of answer the questions about how do you personalize, whether it's content, whether it's to your audience for marketing campaigns, whether it's understanding who your actual audience truly is. So one thing, I think I sound like a bit of a broken record because I say this a lot, but there's a lot of clients out there that don't have a really strong understanding of who their actual online audience is. And when you consider that a lot of purchases are either researched or even purchased online these days, this is a really key factor that clients need to understand. In all of my years working in media research and insights, I've had probably on average 20 media campaign briefs fall across my desk. And it was all about the client, what they were trying to achieve, who they were trying to target. And on multiple occasions, I could say, this is not your target audience. And a lot of the times I can base it on my own shopping behavior. It happened last year when I got a brief for a high-end SUV, and they were targeting men 35 to 54. I was actually in the market and seriously looking at this SUV, but I wouldn't have been targeted with with their advertising, or I wouldn't even be considered. So first and foremost, the most important thing, because we have this incredible amount of data, whether it's behavioural or intent, or even to a certain extent demographics, we have all of this valuable stuff, so we should be utilising it, because in this day and age, the whole spray and pray thing should just be thrown out the door.
Completely thrown out the door. Trent, just wondering if you can hear us. We can't see you, but
That's
hopefully...
okay. I can hear you.
Oh, very good. That's
Okay.
great. Trent, I will now come to you. Thank you, Alice. That really good points that you made there, and we will touch on a lot of what you just said a moment ago. Trent, if I can come to you now and really just get to start us off before we get into the hard data discussion, just start off on your general views of how the market's progressing.
Well,
Trent, we're really struggling to hear you properly. Wondering how you want to progress. We now can't hear you properly and we can't see you. I'm happy to maybe log out one more time and try and come back in. Otherwise, we might have to arrange for you to come back in and join us on another day, and I do apologise. Here we go. So Alice, let's talk data. Sorry about this, everyone. Alice, let's get into some data. And you just touched on some really good points about, the market generally perhaps not being so, just the pray and spray. We're now able, of course, to target a lot more effectively, partly with the use of data. No doubt there's some other sort of programmatic, more software elements that help that along as well. But what comments can you give when you're speaking to marketers? Like how far, or what's left for them to know about this? Why is there that gap between, their knowledge and the information that you're seeing them plan by?
Well, to be completely honest, if I was a marketer, I'd be quite overwhelmed and confused by the market, because you've got probably 10 to 15 data insights providers in markets, obviously selling their own platform and saying, we can answer all your problems. And a lot of it, unfortunately, is trial and error. You might work with a particular client, a data client, and then realize that they offer no value. So there's a lot of noise out there. The other thing is, because I really don't like using this term anymore, but because there is so much big data within corporations themselves, they're still trying to get their head around their own data. So when we come in and we say, we can tell you all about your online audience, and they're in their own mind, they're thinking, well, we haven't even, worked out our own internal data first. There's that kind of restriction there as well. So it's kind of, there's a lot of kind of pieces to the pie that need to be in place. And I think that it's going to be impossible for me to not tie it back to Hitwise. That's where I work. But I think one of the things that I love about this company is it's not purely a demographic company. I might shoot myself in the foot by saying this, but I think in this day and age, you shouldn't target after gender or age. Obviously, if it's a feminine hygiene style product, then you need to obviously consider gender within that. But I think in this day and age, you need to consider who has been online and searched for my brand, who has been to my website, where are they going after that, where are they coming from, what search terms are leading them to come to my website, where are they not following through. So if they're coming to my homepage, why aren't they going beyond that? And using all of this kind of data, you can build up incredible insights into your actual audience. So I've just done a recent retail piece, and looking at that, we obviously look at researchers, dreamers, and buyers. So you've got the researchers who I would put my father in this bucket. He will probably do 2 years research to buy a car. Then you've got people that will buy on the spur of the moment, like myself, even though I'm very easily swayed by pretty colours and leather seats. And then you've obviously got the people that will kind of get recommendations from people and will do quite a lot of activity online. So you need to understand the level where your consumer is to be able to target them in a more relevant environment. So because I don't really research too much, I don't want to be given way too much choice, because in my mind I kind of know what I like and I don't. Whereas my dad, because he is researching, he'll want to get the best quote across multiple brands. He'll want to get the best insights into each model. And these days you can do that with online data. So, whilst it might be confusing and complex as a marketer to kind of get your head around this. At the end of the day, we just want to tell you this is who your audience is. This is who you feel your audience is. And just to kind of tie back in, one of the strong points that we have here is we can match our database with a client's database. Mm-hmm. And from that, we can say to them, do you know that 40% of the people that have subscribed to your database don't actually visit your website? And if that's the case, that's key insights. You've now got 40% of their database that they can focus on and hopefully try and drive them to the website, and vice versa. So of those people that are going to their website that aren't members, why aren't they members? So I feel like I'm just kind of blurting it out because there's a lot you can do.
There does sound like a lot you can do, and probably like a lot of things in this general data, programmatic, new sort of digital media space. In some ways, we've put so many acronyms on it, it's become so complex that we've made it a bit scary and quite confusing for agencies, for clients to really get their head around it. So I think what you're saying, Alice, is really, like, it's insightful for me. I mean, I'm the first one to say that, look, I know who all the players are and I have a general understanding of how it works, but the day-to-day detail that you obviously know is, like, I'm always really keen to know.
Yeah.
We seem to have lost Trent, so let's you and I carry on. So I'll probably now throw in a few questions that perhaps weren't on our original brief, so let's just wing it. If anyone has a question from the audience that's now watching us, please feel free to throw it in, and I'm sure Alice, with all of her expertise, would love to answer you. I'm just throwing you in, Alice.
I'll try.
I'm sure you do well. Coming back to the client and that level of confusion, what are the first steps? Like, if you have a client that comes in and says, okay, I've got, this business, and what are the first steps that they should take when they just come in raw and they're really trying to start this data journey?
I think first and foremost, and it's something that I keep mentioning, and I heard a lot at the conference that I recently went to, is keep it simple. I used to laugh when I'd get briefs across my desk that would be like, I'm selling this product and my target audience is Tom. Tom lives in Pennant Hills. Tom drives a Toyota RAV4. Tom eats ice creams on Saturday. Tom only buys clothing from this place. Tom is this, Tom is that. And I look at it and go, well, you've just taken your potential, you can't see my hands, but you've just taken your potential target audience base from this to this because you are being too creative. So my advice is to keep it simple. First and foremost, to find who your online audience is, both demographics, but then also both purchase behaviours. One important thing that I like to kind of mention is in regards to the age demographics and why I don't necessarily agree in targeting on age is if I was to take my group of girlfriends, I'm going to give away my age, we're all 35. And we are all at very different life stages. I have no kids, so I have more money to spend. One of my girlfriends has got a newborn, so she's obviously staying home. The other one has got 2 kids. The other one is not married. She's single. She's living the life, and we're all kind of living through her. So we all have very different requirements, even though we're all the same age. And from a marketer's point of view, they'd be like, okay, so they'd all be interested in X, Y, or Z. In actual fact, we're not. So don't waste your money by targeting us. Understand who is actually in the market for your product, and you can do that through simple online behaviour data.
And that online behaviour data, Alice, I mean, Google Analytics, I'm assuming, has a part in that. Obviously, the statistics that Hitwise can offer plays a part in that. I think before you mentioned, upstream to the website, downstream from the website, all of those kind of, all of that kind of data helps inform a decision.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that the strength to kind of online behaviour data is if you think about your online behaviour in the past 24 hours and what you have done and what sites you have visited, that from a marketer's perspective and from our perspective, we can interpret that and we can make an assumption on where you are in your life stage, where you are in your life cycle, other external environments. So if you are financially comfortable, then you might be kind of looking at signing up for an Amex Gold or Platinum, or, if you're the other end, you might be looking at debt crisis management. Like all of these, your online behavior can help build out segments as to who you are. And I feel that that's probably, if you can do that, then why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that helps, helps you make a more informed decision about your audience. And as I know, I've on an advertising sales point of view, my saying is make your audience your North Star. And I think that this applies very well in regard to the data sector that you're in as well. Alice, who are you working with, or who do you see that is actually using data very well?
So I'm probably going to get in trouble for this because my husband works for the company, and it's not actually a shameless plug for him, and he's not looking for a promotion. But I feel that Qantas does a really good job. I've obviously got Red Planet, they've got their loyalty programs, and they're doing incredible things with data. So that's a company that I'm watching very closely because obviously I want to get an idea of the direction that they're going. We currently work with them, not as much as we possibly could, but they are on our books, as they say. But yeah, so Qantas is definitely another one. I think the airlines, because they capture so much data with all the air points, they are doing a really, really good job. But then as small as, Witchery, the clothing brand. I'm watching this one closely because I like the store, and the amount of stuff that they're capturing and what they're doing with it. I don't know if it's just I've got poor shopping habits, but I always seem to be drawn in there through their EDMs that they send to me because they're targeted. They're kind of what I'm looking for. So that's a company in the retail space that's doing really well as well.
And I know speaking of the Red Planets and so on, I know from the MediaScope's point of view, that data area is, really the area that's been keeping me quite on my toes, particularly of late. And it has been interesting that we're now starting to see perhaps non-traditional businesses really come into this market. Qantas is the perfect example. I was at an ADMA conference last year, and I think that the marketing manager for Qantas got up and did a keynote, and she said that they're now seeing more revenue growth through their data centre and their loyalty program than they are through their core business, which is obviously airline. I think that that's a really interesting comment of how larger businesses are really using their already their customer data. I was contacted this week by Andrew Reid, Aegis, or Denso Aegis, and now he's over at Ticketek running data. CoreLogic is another MediaScope partner. Now they're traditionally a real estate business that is really now coming into this data area. Other businesses, I suppose, such as Quantium, Tipstone, which I think is a joint venture between Channel 9 and someone. So, yeah, a lot of businesses really now, coming very heavily into this space, and perhaps not traditional media businesses.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that has all come about in the last 2 or 3 years. A lot of those companies that you mentioned have really come to fruition in the past 2 or 3 years. And it's funny, every day I get asked, "Oh, have you heard of this insights company?" And I'm like, I haven't heard of that one, because every day there seems like there's a new one out there. So I think if from a marketer's point of view, I would make sure that I touch base with all of the major ones, some of the small niche ones, get their unique selling points, get what they can do, sit down, and then, the unfortunate thing is to understand data and to utilize it to the best of its effect. It does take time. I've had a lot of clients come to me saying, "I want you to solve this problem, and you've got 24 hours, or you've got 1 week, or, I want you to showcase our audience and build 15 different consumer segments, and you've got a week." The fact is, to really understand the data is to really you've obviously got to look at historical data. You've got to look at outside your own industry. So it takes time. So for any clients that might be listening that are going through that whole data warehouse mining, or even just about to start understanding it, it's not something that happens overnight, and it's something that's going to take quite a lot of time. So for clients considering it, you need to dedicate time and finances to getting it right first. There are a load of companies out there that can help you. My advice would be to ask around, and I think just to kind of get the very basics set up, that will obviously lead the direction that you go in after that.
And just talking a little bit, Alice, about Hitwise. Now, I remember Hitwise when I was at Essential Baby in 2000, and everyone wanted that little badge the internet site to say top 10. Now I think at Hitwise became Experian. Now Experian being sold to a US-based company, and I can never remember the name.
Connexity. So Hitwise was bought by Connexity at the end of last year, in December. Connexity is not in the Australian market yet. I'm not holding anything back. I honestly don't know when they will come. But they're an incredibly exciting company. So if you've heard of Shopzilla, that's Connexity. And so when they come to this market, it's basically going to be the last piece of the puzzle for this business. So going back to Hitwise, it's hilarious. I worked with Hitwise when I was at Fairfax Digital as well many years ago. And the thing I remembered from Hitwise back then was the ranking and clickstream, but most importantly was the Hitwise Awards night. Everybody knew about the Hitwise Awards nights. It was a big industry party and all the awards were given out, and clients proudly showed the little symbol that they won the award. In fact, it's been on advertising campaigns. We've got pictures of it being on a tram in Melbourne. So about 8 years ago, Hitwise had a huge voice in market.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it has kind of dipped in the past couple of years. It kind of lost its branding in market. However, now that we are, as I keep saying, Hitwise, a division of Connexity, our brand is leading first and foremost, so we are able to get our brand back out there. And whenever I talk to people, one of the first things I say to them is, have you heard of Hitwise? And I did it when I was presenting at AdTech a couple of weeks ago. And I was chuffed and also rather surprised that 90% of people put their hand up when I asked, do you know us? And there seems to be this really strong brand affiliation and association with Hitwise. People loved us. So my job is to basically get it back out there in the market and kind of, we've obviously moved on from just rankings and click streams. We've moved into more of the audience side of things, going into the behavioural intent, interest kind of data that I was mentioning before.
Yep, excellent. And yes, I remember those award nights quite well as well, Alice. In my very early baby days, as I said, we were very proud to be number one.
If you start doing something a week in advance, you can go away from our portfolio to build, but
can you hear someone else?
Can
you hear someone else?
No.
Talking? Okay.
No.
Talking. There's no one. I'm apart from one, two I see.
Oh, it might be someone. It might be someone in the office.
Yes, I'm definitely.
Okay.
Anyway, now I want to touch on something that always comes up in this regard. So I'd really like to get your opinion on this ongoing industry debate, but I'm going to bring up, yes, Gavin, it's a cross-lab line. Gavin's type that for us. Privacy, a big issue in this space. I really think this is an issue that we're going to be hearing about more and more. But what is your opinion of the whole privacy debate?
Look, I've been told that I should be more stricter and stronger with my own privacy. I think I'm probably a little bit careless when it comes to privacy, but in a nutshell, the best insights corporations, I believe, work on anonymous data. So we have anonymous data. We don't actually take any personal information at all. We can't even, if somebody came to us and said, we want to, reach people on this street in the suburb, then I actually don't think we can do that because it, zones it down too much, but not that we'd want to do that anyway. So we don't actually capture any personal data whatsoever. In regards to the whole privacy, look, I think the media has a lot to ask for here. And this might show my, vagueness in the whole privacy side of things, but I think every week there's a story on a current affair or Today Tonight, which is highlighting the dangers of the internet. I need to talk to my parents-in-law or even my parents, and when I tell them what I do, they get completely freaked out that they think that we are watching every move that they make on the internet, that because we are tracking their online behaviors, that we are literally sitting there behind a camera watching them. And then, you've obviously got a lot of these stories that break about these poor old lonely people who fall in love with somebody and then end up giving them all their money. So there's a lot of scary stories out there in the media about privacy online. If you are sensible with your own privacy, which I think I then I think you'll be fine. It's just a matter of education to obviously work on that side of things. You know, in regards to giving, I think my fear would be when I give my personal data to a corporation. By giving my personal data to a corporation, I am trusting them that it's not going to fall in the hands of the wrong people, that it's not going to be leaked, that it's not going to be, you know, used incorrectly. And I think there's, you know, I think it comes down to that you should always kind of have in the back of your mind that when you are giving over personal data, you need to have some kind of uneasiness about it. You do need to question it a little bit, especially if you're giving it to a corporation. I mean, have a look at the Ashley Madison thing that blew up last year. You know, it's like if you fill out an online survey and they say this online survey is anonymous. Probably isn't.
Yeah.
So you can always be recognized online. You can always be, you know, that's why if you see people comment on articles as anonymous, Mumbrella is big for this. If you comment on Mumbrella on an article as anonymous, they can track your IP address and determine which company you're from. Yeah, and they do that quite a lot. So just be cautious, be sensible, and you know, ask the questions if you need to. But I think from a media perspective, we've got to stop putting so much fear out there about, you know, being tracked online.
I mean, I think that I think that you've got a point. I think perhaps as an industry, there's an education piece that we can perhaps sort of fill in, and that is, you know, what does happen with your data. What does happen when you sign up for something? And you're right, it's anonymous. But if anything, perhaps let's look at the benefits. And the benefits are that you're going to get more relevant messages that are more suited toward your needs, which will hopefully
exactly
your professional and your business life.
Yes.
You know, the other piece that I always think that as an industry we should be more vocal about is talking to consumers and audiences about the business models of the free media that they're consuming. You know, if you're ad blocking, then basically you're taking away the revenue stream of the content that you're consuming for free. There was a survey in the IAB in the UK last year that said, you know, something like 70 to 80% of people didn't understand that the content that they were consuming was underpinned or funded by the advertising that they were perhaps blocking.
I think consumers also get freaked out if they're on Facebook and they like a page and then they go off Facebook and all of a sudden they're served an ad for that page that they like. And to them it feels like they're being stalked or that they're being watched. But in actual fact, if there was that education piece that as an industry we could say to them, you are being served this because you have shown an interest in this brand. You know, so I think the education piece is probably key because I feel that is where we're kind of falling through. And in regards to the whole ad blocking thing, it's a challenging conversation because nothing is more frustrating than going to a news website, having an OTP, having pre-roll video ad startup. And I feel like if I go to a particular site, which I won't name, I feel like I'm just managing the ads that are thrown at me. And it's not a great user experience. And you know, that will either make me get off the site or I'll just get really, really frustrated and not actually return to that site at all. So ad blocking in that kind of side, I can see why it would be a benefit. However, and this is the argument I have with my mother all the time because she hates advertising. And every time an ad comes on the TV in the middle of Home and Away, she swears and curses and throws a hissy fit. And she said, this is what you do. And I'm like, no, but the advertising that you are watching actually pays for your show. Without this advertising, you would not get to watch Home and Away. But it's still just this, you know, back in her day, there wasn't that much ads on. So there's a lot of kind of things that we need to look past.
Do you think also, Alice, you know, the creative that's being served to you, I think, has such a huge part to play in that? And that's, you know, I'm often saying that is perhaps the missing piece of the puzzle that we experience as people in programmatic. If it's right audience, right time, right place, right area, right everything, then the creative also has to match all of that. And I think quite often it doesn't. That to me is the missing part of this puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. At the AdTech conference recently, the three key things that came out of it was personalization, mobile, and content. Yeah. It is really amazing that in 2016 we're still having to convince the power of mobile. The case study that I showed was around that SUV, high-end SUV, and I showed a stat that 54% of people will search for their cars on their phone rather than on a desktop computer. So if you are not on mobile, you are missing 54% of your potential audience. So, you've got to think about what device you should be advertised on. It should also be what time and what environment. And one thing that I'm also like to advise clients is if you are, say, an automotive client, yes, you kind of have to participate in those drive sites. But you know what? Understand the audience that's going to those drive sites and target them elsewhere. Because if you target them elsewhere, it's a much less cluttered environment. Your brand, your auto brand is probably going to be one of maybe 2 brands there rather than one of 16 or 17. So this is where you need to really kind of understand on the content that you deliver to them, the device that you advertise on, and time of day, time of year, all of that kind of stuff.
Excellent. And I think too, I think sometimes we forget that this is still such a new part of our industry. We are all still learning together. It is, every day I hear something and I'm completely out of my comfort zone. So I'm constantly Googling an acronym or, trying to find out about what something is, speaking to colleagues, asking lots of questions, going to lots of conferences, doing lots of reading. It's still such an early part of this industry. We're all still together, but you've got to be in it, find out about it.
Yeah. Exactly.
We've got quite a few people looking in, and I really thank you for joining us. Trent, I think you're looking in as well, and now should be the time to apologise. Trent was supposed to be joining us, but we had some technical issues. Trent from IOTA. I should also just say that they launched their annual audience index during the week. And you can certainly see that on MediaScope. And of course, I highlighted in the newsletter today. I'll actually put a link when I link to this replay. I'll put a link to the audience index as part of that. So thank you everyone for joining us. If anyone's got a quick question, we can certainly cover that. But now perhaps if we can just move to our media week. And let's have a chat about anything that's particularly caught your eye this week, Alice, whether it be data or non-data.
Yeah, so this week I was, Hitwise sponsored the wine tasting event at the Customer 360 Symposium up in the Hunter Valley. So I could tell you a whole lot of wine-related stories, but I probably shouldn't. It's only 1 p.m.
But is that conference? All of that. What happens at conference stays at conference.
Exactly. And I think the key thing that came out of the conference, it was obviously all around customer experience, and there was some incredible presentations from some really great brands within Australia. And I think the key takeout was your call center is not just a call center. It's actually the face of your brand. So it's the first port of call that somebody will go to if they have an issue with your product or if they want to complain. So that person, I didn't know this happened, but I can see how it happened. There seems to be a disconnect between marketing departments and the call center. So marketing will put out a campaign saying, 50% off for this product. It's great. Call our call center and sign up or whatever it is. Call center will be getting calls going, yeah, we don't know about that, so we can't give it to you.
No way.
So yeah, there was a couple of examples of how that happened. So I think the strength of the call center is probably something that I've never really considered. Obviously, you consider it when you are wanting to complain and contact a client, but from a business perspective, it's not an area of the company that gets much focus, and it's one that really should, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And if you have a poor experience with a call center, there was something huge. I can't remember the stat, but I think it was around 60 or 70% will walk away from a brand if they have a bad experience. I think it was 71% actually.
Yeah.
Well, so It's huge.
You can recognise that in your own personal experience, can't you? I love it when you
definitely
see that in our day-to-day working life that kind of resonates with your own personal experience, and I think that's a good one. I'll talk a little bit about my week, and indeed we've had another experience at the NBN with Trent being unable to get in. I should more perhaps say that Trent probably isn't on the NBN at the moment, but certainly as I said before, I think you came in, Alice, I seem to have become the NBN woman, which is fine, but lots of people contacted me about their experiences or their thoughts on where it's gone wrong and how we can fix it and so on, which is fantastic. But certainly this week we obviously saw it finally being mentioned through mainstream media, and there are a lot of people both on the NBN hashtag on Twitter, a lot of tech journalists, a lot of academics that have been speaking about the issues with the NBN for such a long time, but they've found it very, very difficult to get those opinions out to the mainstream. This week we finally saw a story by Waleed Ali on the project, and we also saw it then followed up about half an hour later on the 7:30 report on the ABC. So it is an issue that does seem to be getting more and more traction. Certainly within our industry, I know a lot of the industry organisations are now looking at it, which is really good. So hopefully in the coming week we'll have more of an update. But please, to everyone watching, I just say please spread the word. The NBN is going to be an issue that affects our industry enormously. It should be something that is on all of our radars, and I just encourage you to find out about it. Get in touch with me. I can send you the open letter or send you some resources. But it's something that we as an industry need to come together on. So there's my NBN spiel for the day. I can relax now. Thank you again. Thank you, IOTA, for the T-shirt. Again, I'll certainly be linking to their audience index where they speak about data usage in the Australian and global markets. I'm really apologise to you, Trent. I can see that you're still looking at us. Trent, we weren't able to get you in today, but I will make that up to you at a later date, hopefully with a better connection. Thank you, everyone. Got that.
Sorry, I've just got some background noise.
That's all right. But thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm so glad that I at least made it through to the last one. Last week I got cut out at the halfway mark, but that's good. So I'm glad I made it through today. Thanks so much everyone for joining us. I'm not too sure what topic we'll be doing next week. I'll come up with something, but school holidays start for me this afternoon, so we'll see how we go. But Alice, thank you very much. Alice from Hitwise. It's been a really interesting discussion on data, and the replay of the discussion will be up on the MediaScope's site later this afternoon. So thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you for having me.